So, Team Fortress 2. Needless to say, a legendary game. It isn't perfect, but it absolutely deserves the status as one of gaming's greats. Most of its flaws fall upon the design and balance of certain specific weapons, alongside veteran syndrome. Since it's been out so long, so many people have thousands of hours in the game. And so many players have a higher skill level than the developers probably could have thought possible. With that said, there's always occasionally been a bit of a casual discussion about Team Fortress 3. Personally, I think, despite Valve's track record with the number, it is possible, if not eventually inevitable. Eventually. Here's the premise of the video. I'm going to give simple changes that improve the problems TF2 has, or simply just change things. I think if a game gets a sequel and it doesn't add a large amount of new content or doesn't change things and just keeps things mostly the same for the sake of being the same, and just maybe adds a couple maps or maybe one or two things, it's not really justifying its own existence. Who put that there? With that said, I want little to no carryover items and maps from Team Fortress 2. Aside from classic maps that are absolute must-haves like Dust Bowl or Two Fort, and maybe one weapon from Team Fortress 2 per class, I want Team Fortress 3 to stand on its own 2 feet, just as Team Fortress 2 does from Classic. With that said, I also want new characters for each of the classes to be. I love the Team Fortress 2 mercenaries, everyone fucking does, but their story is handedly over, and I think moving forward is the right thing to do for a sequel. Additionally, there's a ton of balanced discourse around TF2. So I'll try to be more unique instead of what is probably the best or most practical decisions, since tons of people already discussed the most elegant and standard changes dozens of times over. I'm not an expert of Team Fortress 2, I have a couple hundred hours in the game, but I'm nowhere near the dedicated players who live and breathe this game. But I also think that probably gives me a good viewpoint into some places that the veterans who fall into their strict routines wouldn't have seen or wouldn't have come up with. First, let's talk about the setting. One thing you should know about me is that the reason I got into Team Fortress 2 was because of the characters, the comics, and just the general lore and vibe. Team Fortress 2 lore is fucking hilarious and amazing. With that said, I don't really care what the lore of Team Fortress 3 is, strangely. I'm going to give like a sentence or two about an idea I have for the personality of each class, and that's about it. All we really care about the setting is it's basically a new Gravel Wars-esque scenario in the 80s and 90s. Whatever you want the plot to be, it doesn't matter. A pair of companies are at each other's throat, fighting over useless land, as always. Same shit, different game. Let's keep moving. With that out of the way, let's get to the 9 classes. I'll be starting with what I consider to be the least problematic classes from Team Fortress 2, in terms of gameplay design and issues, and moving towards the ones that I think gradually need more and more changes. Let's not waste any more time, and get this started. First on the list is Soldier. I think it's a pretty tight consensus that Soldier is the least problematic class in the game. I think his popularity speaks for itself, that Soldier has very few design problems. He is very fun to play as and against. And almost every single one of his weapons is tightly and intelligently designed, so Soldier is the least changed overall. Even so, I want to change every single class just a bit. I want to make each class feel distinct from his Team Fortress 2 counterpart. So I'm going to turn to his rocket launcher, the primary weapon of Soldier. The main source of its balance, incredible range, incredible damage at the cost of having to aim projectiles, and having a slow reload time. I want to make Soldier's rocket launchers slightly more dynamic, and rewarding for more accurate players. Direct hits of all kinds naturally do more damage, but splash damage is weakened. I also considered potentially making it so that if you get an air shot or a kill with a direct hit, you'll gain a slight boost to your reload speed, kinda like what the Dragon Fury has. Would this be incredibly strong? Yes. So I'm very cautious about how much to give Soldier, especially since he's already one of the strongest classes. But if splash damage was slightly weakened, just slightly, so that his skill 4 doesn't raise too much, I think this would potentially make his skill expression slightly more varied than it already is, which is already a massive amount. Soldier does not need these changes, but if he is to get any, this is what I would come up with. For a quick character description concept, Soldier would be a Rambo-esque figure who is super obsessed with roughing it and toughing it, to a comedic extent of only eating poisonous animals and things like that. And for his place of origin, I was thinking somewhere like Angola or the Congo. Additionally, I wanted the Team Fortress 3 classes to be split into 3 roles, not the ones that were set in TF2. I find offense, defense, and support aren't exactly descriptive, and kind of lead new players astray. Instead, my ideas are frontline, flank, and support, again. This feels a lot more descriptive and is a lot more varied for different teams and different game modes. Soldier, of course, is a frontline class. I don't think anyone will argue with that kind of description for him. Moving on to what I consider the second least problematic class from Team Fortress 2, Scout. Just like Soldier, Scout is mostly fine as he is. I think Scout having a weaker melee than every other class has always been weird to me. I personally would make Scout a bit more melee-oriented in Team Fortress 3, potentially even giving them the best base melee. I think of any class, Scout has the tools to make melee effective. Personality-wise, I imagine Scout could be a rowdy asshole, could be a rowdy Irishman. Imagine if Aaron Ryan from Punch-Out was in Team Fortress. You get what I'm seeing. Screaming and fighting and being generally a rowdy nuisance, which is Scout. And for his role, Scout is a flank class. Leaning into that side of the design a bit more, I think helps Scout in terms of his balance and meta. But even then, Scout can definitely play on the front line, and these roles definitely aren't hard and set rules like in other games. Third is Engineer. The main change of Engineer, because I think their default kit is very competently designed, is just that Engineer, along with the next class on this list, has a sizable amount of problematic unlocks. Namely for Engineer, I would say the Wrangler, and debatably the Short Circuit. So making sure Engineer doesn't have those exact tools, or making sure they aren't in that exact same state, would be nice. An additional change to Engineer, to make them feel a bit more aggressive and faster, is that I would make it so buildings are constructed and upgraded a bit faster, but repair a bit slower. Essentially, imagine if the Jag was stock. Not exactly, but roughly. As for the character, I imagined a kind of super egotist Italian Renaissance woman, the kind of person who has a massive mansion filled exclusively with art of themselves. Imagine getting gunned down by a sentry and you hear a voice line of an engineer just gloating about how superior or smart she is. Fucking infuriating, that's perfect. And of course, Engineer is a support class. All of their tools are incredibly supportive, and generally work best when they're just behind the front line, which is what I want the support classes to generally feel like. Fourth up is Medic. Once again, basically just avoiding certain unlocks. Looking at you, Vaccinator. If we get rid of the certain problematic tools, just replacing the stock needle gun with something more like the crossbow. The crossbow might as well already be stock anyways, let's be real. It's such a well-designed, fun tool that I think making it stock and making all the other items in its slot alike it would allow you to be a lot more interesting and expressive with items in said slot. For the character, I imagined a Dutch medical student who is so unbelievably in debt that they have to turn to killing people for money. I imagine giving them a kind of minimum wage employee mentality where they honestly don't even give a shit if everyone dies. Like, there'll be a nearly entire team wipe, and the medic will just be like, this might as well happen. Next up is Pyro. In Team Fortress 2, Pyro is generally a jack-of-all-trades. Despite this, he's not really a generalist, as he's kind of outperformed by every other class in whatever he can do. The closest thing he has to a distinctive niche is defensive, protective combat, even though Heavy kinda does that a bit better. I want to centralize Pyro into a more frontline, semi-support damage-dealing role. And thus, I took a current feature that is very much underused and expanded it. Currently in Team Fortress 2, Flames and Afterburn block all healing sources except for medkits. This is really cool, except for the fact that all healing sources greatly reduce the length of Afterburn when applied, so you don't really notice it much if at all. My change would be that enemies inflicted with Afterburn would have a sizable reduction in any healing they receive, and that Afterburn can only be removed by resupply or water. For the character, I imagine this kind of like revolutionary artiste type from, I just wrote South America, I don't know, let's say Brazil. I think you could get some funny cosmetic or weapon ideas out of that. And obviously frontline class. I don't need to specialize that. I already mentioned it earlier. Demo Man. Now, for many of you, it might be weird to see Demo Man here, which I agree. Demo Man is next to Scout and Soldier. Demoman's great. Demoman is fine. Demo Knight, on the other hand, whoo boy. Now, Demo Knight has a very distinct problem. The problem with Demo Knight is that if there's a Pyro, or a Heavy, or an Engineer on the enemy team, you kind of just can't play anymore, as the entire game just stops, as this one class can completely shut you down with a single push of a button. And the thing is, the main solution to Demo Knight's problem would be a nightmare to give to Demo Man. And while there are a ton of better solutions, or more interesting and dynamic solutions, like Hybrid Knight existing, which I love, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for, especially since we already have Hybrid Knight. No, I'm going for something weird and extreme. I'm splitting them in two. I've seen a lot of solutions to Demo Knight, but fuck it, we're just splitting them in half. Say hello to the 10th class. Just gonna blanketly call it the Knight for now. We'll probably get a better name. The main thing the Knight gets is simply a hit scan primary, something weak like a pistol or maybe a shotgun if a pistol is not good enough, but something to just give them an answer. The classes like Pyro, Heavy, and somewhat NG, I think they should definitely be countered by NG still. But they should have a chance, man. With that said, Demo is a frontline, Knight is a flank, and for the characters, I imagine the Knight being this, like, crooked and corrupt cop from, like, Miami or something. Imagine with, like, a gold chain, shit like that. You know what I'm talking about. The kind of cop where the chief goes, like, one of us has been giving bribes. Is it you? And he's got, like, fucking 6 Lambos, and he's like, no. As for the Demo, I imagine this, like, hot mess indigenous woman who's just, like, done with the world and just wants to smoke crack and drink and drive and launch fireworks at her neighbor's dog. So, you know, like, the ideal woman. Heavy. As you can probably tell from the footage, being literally of only one class, I'm a Heavy main, so I have some words about Heavy. I think it's mostly alright. I think Heavy is definitely a little too weak, in my opinion. More accurately, Heavy is boring. Me being a Heavy main is exceptional in and of itself. And while I know every single Heavy main claims to be the only Heavy main, trust me, I'm the only Heavy main. So you can trust me on what he says more than anyone else. Buffing his damage or giving him more health would just make the current problems of Heavy worse. Personally, I think just toning down his main weakness is the main way to make him more interesting and dynamic, and raising that skill ceiling quite a bit. At least, a lot of people's perceived skill ceilings. And I'm not even asking that much. I'm asking, perhaps, like, the same ground movement speed as Soldier. Which, like, I know sounds like a major boost, but, like, have you ever not rocket jumped as Soldier? How slow that motherfucker moves? Trust me, I don't think it's anything we need to worry about. A slightly faster Heavy, and that's basically it. I don't know, maybe Sandwich is stock secondary, but I don't even know if we keep the Sandwich, probably, but For the character, I imagine this, like, big Turkish man, this massive Goliath, who is just like this soft-spoken sweetheart who will absolutely kill you without a second thought. He's got, like, 9 daughters, and, like, a wife he just, like, melts next to, something, that kind of guy. I have a vision. Most of these class concepts came to me in a dream, and it is 4:43 a.m. and I am losing my fucking mind. Heavy's a frontline class. I don't need to specify this one. 8th out of 9th is Spy. And the thing is with Spy, as we all certainly know, anything Spy can do, Sniper does better. So, moving into Team Fortress 3, what I wanted for Spy to specialize in is to be the only class with instant kills. One-shot kills, specifically. You may say, well, what about Sniper? Spy's the only class, what the fuck does Sniper have? So before we can really talk about Spy, I think we have to go through Sniper. So, Sniper. For the record, I do think Sniper is probably the most problematic class in Team Fortress 2, exclusively because of the issue of Veteran Syndrome. If the skill level wasn't that high, yeah, Sniper's fine. And I think in most situations, yeah, Sniper is fine. However, a good Sniper is unstoppable in an unfun way unlike any other class. When the how to fight every class and win guides always go, just avoid him for the Sniper bits, I think that's a sign that we need to change something. Now there's a couple options that are popular with the community. One is straight up getting rid of him, which honestly kinda based. The other, and very much reasonable one, is simply nerf him by lowering his ammo capacity and making it so he needs to charge his rifle at least a little bit to get headshots. And while I do like that, everyone else has talked about that already, so I'm gonna do something that's fucking crackhead insane. Alright, watch this. So, Sniper doesn't get insta-kills. You may say, well then what's the fucking point? Well, when the sniper hits someone with their rifle, it now can inflict various types of substances on them. Basically, I'm taking the concept of Girardi and applying it to the entire class. Though different weapons could apply different substances, or maybe there's some kind of mechanic where you can switch between what substance you're applying. Imagine if there was a class that had access to Girardi, Mad Milk, and like other various useful substances of that same caliber, and they were balanced around the opportunity cost of those options and the fact that you need to be extremely precise as a glass cannon class from long range. Is this smart? Is this a good design? Probably not, but fuck it, it's unique, so I'm putting it in the video. As for the character, I imagine this kind of like Yakuza assassin type, this poisoner subterfuge type, always willing to get up to a scheme, always got some game at play. And now we can finally get back to Spy. Now Spy, this is where we get to the common things everyone talks about. I was willing to be crazy and unique with Sniper, but I don't really have that in me anymore. Team Fortress 3 Spy should allow you to fake reloads while disguised, adjust your movement speed to be Spy's base speed while disguised as slower classes, at a push of a button. I also want the revolver to be able to headshot the Spy, essentially making the ambassador the stock. Not an insanely powerful headshot, but enough to at least two-shot all but one class. But enough to at least two-shot 8 out of 9 classes. This way, Spy is way more flexible in what they can pull off. As for the character, I imagine this like wealthy, rich, international super thief from Monaco or something, who would be the most renowned and wealthy thief of all time if it wasn't for the fact that she keeps gambling away all of her stolen goods. God fucking damn it. Anyways, Spy is a flank class. It's not exactly what his role is, but fuck it. So, there we go. Those are the 9 classes. So, yeah. Good night.